Hello, my friends. Welcome to Ask Joel. And this episode, we've got a question about Jesus and reality, but mostly, is Jesus real? When I was in college, I had a professor who had a whole class about the historical Jesus, and it asked this question: is Jesus real? Now, I didn't go to like a Catholic college. I went to a state school, and the class was really enlightening for this one reason. There were a lot of things that were said that I disagreed with, but that one question, is Jesus real? This person who did not believe that Jesus was God absolutely believed that Jesus was real. In fact, most scholars, atheist scholars even, would say, yeah, Jesus existed. You might come across people that prompt you to ask this question. I mean, is Jesus really real? And they'll say things like, Jesus is just modeled after these old gods, these pagan gods. He was trying to appeal. I even heard one person say that all of Paul's letters and the Gospels were written by the Roman government in an effort to make these Christians, this subgroup of Jews, be more obedient to Rome, which is just fascinating as an idea, but not true. Here's the thing. When we think about, is Jesus real, there are some pieces of evidence that you really have to wrestle hard with to refute. So maybe you've gotten this question, maybe that's a question you've asked before. Here's the first piece. There are secondary sources that are not the Gospels that talk about who Jesus is. Historians that lived around that time, not only do they talk about Jesus, they also mention the fact that he was crucified, and they talk about this following that Jesus has, this cult that's arisen in Judaism called Christianity. Those are all referenced, and they're contemporary. That means they happened around a similar time as the apostles and of Jesus. So there's secondary sources with that, but maybe that's not enough. The next piece is that a lot of historical research has been done in dissecting the Gospels and saying, let's take a look at these and see what historical things they point to that would indicate that a man named Jesus of Nazareth existed. Many of those people, again, and these are not people who would say, yeah, Jesus was God, affirm that a historical person named Jesus of Nazareth existed. So again, we look at that source and we say, well, these secular scholars, they also are saying, well, Jesus existed, because there's evidence even in the writings of the Gospels themselves that show this person was there. But let's go a little bit further. Throughout history, there have been little cults and subsects of religion that have risen up and fallen. They have a really dynamic leader, and oftentimes, it's not a really good thing, and they kind of rise up and then they fall out of existence. Religions founded on a human typically don't last very long, especially when they're just a small group of people, especially if that group of people is persecuted. And we have record of the early disciples being persecuted and the early Christians being persecuted. If Jesus is not real, if he's just an idea or a concept or something that somebody made up, St. Paul made up Jesus, because who knows why would people endure the suffering and persecution for a fictional character? It'd be the same as if I was like, hey, listen, you either renounce Mickey Mouse or I'm going to have to put you in prison. You'd be like, I don't believe in Mickey Mouse. He's not real. I don't follow him. I don't like him. I was never even a fan of any Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I don't like that. You would immediately give that up because it's not worth going to prison, let alone losing your life for something that's not real. You might argue about it on online forums, but you're not going to argue about it to the point of death. But the early Christians did. And again, we have records of that. We have records of governments persecuting early Christians. Why? Because they had an experience not just of a real person, but a real encounter with God. And I think that's worth really stepping back and appreciating, because Christianity is not just an idea. It's not just a concept. It is a religion that is founded on Jesus Christ, God himself, a real person. And secondary sources, historical sources, even secular scholars all affirm the reality of a real person named Jesus who came from a town called Nazareth. But here's the thing that we know, is that even a real person, might not be worth dying for as a movement. And a movement surrounded with a real person probably doesn't last more than, 50 years after they pass away. But this one has. And it's not just survived, but it survived persecution, it survived eradication, and it survives continued persecution in our world today. That's not just a religion founded on a real person, that's a religion founded by God himself. So, is Jesus real? Absolutely. Bonus question, was Jesus God and Savior? Most definitely. If you've got a question you want to ask, go ahead and leave it in the comments section below. Give this video a like for Jesus, folks, and share it with a friend to say, hey, Jesus is real and he wants to know you in a deeper way. And we'll see you back here real soon with more questions about Jesus, the faith, anything you want to know on Ask Joel.